Yahar, matey! We are here for Seaside, and I don't want to play this game because it'll take an age, and it did take an age to play. I had to. You still see the length of the video is 20 something minutes, and that is excessive. How can I talk for 20 something minutes? So why will it take an age? Because we're both going to buy ambassadors and junk each other. And we first have to stabilize our deck, make sure it doesn't get overwhelmed by junk, and then see how we can build from there. So I probably want to open excuse me, with a double ambassador, considering there are a couple nice 2 costs on the board, Haven and Native Village, right? Probably do want the Native Village so that you mitigate or avoid collision of the ambassadors. So I open ambassador, my opponent also opens ambassador, and I can go for the caravan. That is a solid opening as well. Caravan and ambassador is what I'm considering. Lookout is also an option, but in the end I think the second ambassador is going to be very good. If you win the junkin war, you usually win the game, right? So I do pick up the second ambassador here. Again, caravan, nothing wrong with it. I think it's a perfectly reasonable alternative, and especially on my opponent's hand, I probably would have gone for the caravan and ambassador over double ambassador. He has 5-2, but he didn't show that to me, so I guess that influenced my decision a little bit. So had I known he would only have 1 ambassador, I would have picked up a caravan along with my ambassador, then picked up another ambassador, and then Native Village, and built from there, right? So on the other hand, I have the 2 ambassadors, so that's whatever. He picks up a Haven over the Native Village, right? I understand the Haven, you want to cycle more. It can give you an increased hand size the following turn, which ambassador likes, so fine. I want the Native Village because I have the 2 terminals in my deck. Also, Native Village kinda trashes, pseudo trashing they call it. It sets something aside. Hopefully it'll be a junk card. And then you could pick it up at a later point in time, presumably when you have an ambassador in hand. So Native Village also does a similar thing to Haven, except you have more control, right? Haven, you have to take the card you set aside on the following turn. Native Village, you don't have to, but you need to see another Native Village to be able to pick up the things on your mat. So I do set aside an ambassador here, but that isn't terrible because they would have probably collided anyway. So nice, it helped me avoid collision. And I am going to pick up a silver. I am, excuse me again, slightly ahead in the junkin race. My opponent only had the 1 ambassador compared to my 2. He recently picked up a second one, so I expect some more things to be flung at me. However, while I have the brief lead in the deck size battle, I will pick up the silver. It'll allow me to get more nice things. So he now goes for a Native Village after buying Haven for a couple of times. And here my silver comes into play. I could have kept a copper there, for example, and gone for a caravan, but really I just want to get stuff out the deck as quickly as I can and then see what happens from there. So 3, it could be another silver, and I'm thinking about another silver. And you have to be very, very careful in ambassador games. When should you add stop cards to the deck? And I don't think now is the time. With my opponent's double ambassador, I am worried that I'll get buried on that junk if I pick up the second silver. So I'm just going to play it safe and pick up another Native Village here. I have 3 Native Villages now, which is quite a lot, but it's fine, it's fine. Native Village also kind of pseudo draws, right? So if you have 3 Native Villages in hand, you can draw 2 cards, so it's not terrible in terms of like being like an actual village with 1 card, 2 actions. This is like n-1, where n is the number of Native Villages you have in hand. So that's okay, that's not terrible, right? So, right, this is what is going to happen for a long time in the middle game. We're just going to we're just going to fling junk at each other. Just that is all that is happening. Just trying to fling junk at each other and trying to keep the deck under control. I pick up a Haven here. I have more than enough Native Villages to do what it is that I want to do, so the Haven will give me some it is a cantrip, right? It's a cantrip, so I won't. It's not a stop card, is what I'm saying, and it can be useful, of course. So I do have a native village on the mat, which really isn't too much of an issue, right? It's not a big deal at all. I just need the one native village to come with the two ambassadors to be happy, and I have three of them in a reasonably thin deck. So I would say at this point I'm a little bit ahead on the deck size battle. My opponent has recovered a bit after picking up the second ambassador, now goes for a silver of their own. So you see the deck size there. This is reasonable. Reasonable. So just going to keep setting aside here with the native village. I believe next time I'll probably pick up and I'll have 3 extra cards in hand, and ambassador could probably swing quite a few things across. And 2 leaves me with enough for Haven, right? That silver is important, and now I'm starting to think about a second silver in my deck. So with a second silver, that opens up quite a bit of the board. Caravans most notably is what you want, right? You want the caravan to start drawing, and it'll make the junking less of an issue. You'll line up your ambassadors with your native village, which didn't have them here, and so on and so on, right? But for now, we're just going to fling junk across. I just need to keep 1 copper in my deck to be able to buy the second silver, and then I can get rid of all the copper and proceed to buy caravans. So, right, the tricky part here for me was to decide when to pick up the second silver, because my opponent is keeping up quite nicely with the junk in here, with all his havens and native villages and whatnot. So I just have to be very, very cautious. It seems like the time is coming soon for me to pick up the silver, especially with how many cards I've set aside on the native village. Also, seeing as how my opponent now picks up a caravan, there's no way I could give him like more than half the caravan. Absolutely no way. That cannot be allowed. So I have to prevent that from happening, because then that just lets him back in the game. I have a small advantage right now, and I want to keep ahead and push that advantage even further along. So Haven here, I am probably going to set aside an ambassador with it, and yeah, I could set aside a copper here, and I only have 1 card in deck at this point, so my deck is nice and thin, I believe. So what I am going to do, I think, yeah, here's where I stop and buy the second silver, and hopefully now I should be able to pick up caravans reliably 1 or 2 from here on and proceed from there. So now we're starting to enter the part of the game where, you know, we have a little bit of money in our deck. It's somewhat stable, and we want to build out of the ambassador junking. This is all very dry and very stock for ambassador games. This is just what happens in ambassador games. This is very characteristic of them, is what I'm saying. So here I am gonna return a couple coppers and start in on the caravan. So we are up and running here with the caravans. Very nice addition to the deck. And when you get to this point, you have to start thinking about, alright, well, how do you build out of it, and what do you do, what do you want to do after you build? So there are treasure maps on the board. Also, my opponent is buying caravans with coppers, which I don't like. I think you should return those, get a second silver, and just keep very, very clean. Keep very, very clean. Because the more he keeps those coppers around is, yeah, like I'm just gonna get rid of all of my coppers here. Because the more junk he has in his deck, and it becomes more difficult to draw through and do things and whatnot. So right, building. There are treasure maps, as I was mentioning, and that seems to be the way to go here. Your draw is limited to caravan, and that isn't going to draw a lot of cards. And money actually is one of the things that's decently effective against the ambassador attacks. And this is something I was concerned of. I felt like when my opponent saw he was getting slightly behind in the junking race, he would switch over to money and yeah, go for the treasure map thing, because he wasn't like terribly behind, but just a little bit, I feel. So he could still line up his treasure maps, especially with the number of havens he has in his deck. and he would get his treasure maps before me and then get 4 gold in his deck, and his deck wasn't so bad, and he would be able to get provinces very reliably. And if you get 4 provinces on this board, that's a lot. The opponent has to do quite a bit of maneuvering and pick up duchies and whatnot, and then your deck breaks at that point because you have what, 5 caravans, 6 caravans, and it just can't draw everything, right? So I am just keeping an eye on the treasure map all the time, thinking about, do I want to pick it up now or do I just want to get more caravans? And as long as my opponent is going for the caravans, I'll go for them too. Like I said, I think I still am ahead a little bit in the deck size battle, especially seeing as how I was able to draw everything last turn. Of course, that was with the help of the native village and the haven and whatnot, but still, I mean, I don't think anybody has put everything in their hand for the game yet. Alright, so he buys a caravan, I'm gonna get a caravan here, and it seems like we're just content to run down the pile for now. Seems like we're just content to run down the pile for now. And actually, so this was something I thought of and was thinking of for quite some time. Instead of a second silver, or even after the second silver, perhaps I could buy a cut purse, because like I said, he's playing with more copper than I'm playing with. He's opting not to send them back at some points. So if I play with the cut purse, that's actually gonna put a big dent in his economy, and also is going to make him more junky, because he can't have that copper to return it with the ambassador. However, I decide against the cut purse because he doesn't have that many copper and he has quite a few cards in deck. It won't hit very often. Of course, seeing his hand is nice, and then you have to wait against the caravan there. Like, really, you're going to pass up a caravan for a cut purse? I don't think it's worth it. Maybe after the caravans are gone. Maybe. Again, here you see him buying caravan with a couple coppers in play, so I mean, if my cut purse connects, I think it is going to be quite damaging to him. It'll set him back in the junking, and it'll also cut into his economy. Probably won't be able to buy caravan on that turn. But I didn't go for it. I chose instead to go after the caravans, and now they're empty, and we have 5 each. So what do you do from here? What do you do from here? Well, couple of options are available to me, being slightly ahead in the deck size battle. One, I could go buy a curse and start flooding him with that, and just work with a deck that draws everything and just puts 1 copper, 1 curse into my opponent's deck each turn, right? The manual mountebank. I could do that. That is a way to win. Eventually my opponent's deck will just break down. He won't be able to do anything. Alternatively, I could go for the treasure maps. That is something that I could do. The treasure maps are more risky though, because so my opponent has picked up a gold, right? He's picked up a gold. By me not junking him, he has the opportunity to make his deck better. And with the gold and the extra coppers and the silver, you know, he has more money in his deck than me right now. So he is probably hoping that all that money could balance the extra junk that he has in his deck, I presume. So I think picking up the curse or just junking my opponent is the safer way to win here. But it would take a long time, that's one issue. And the second issue is he is going to get to 8 sometimes, right? That's just natural variance. And he's going to buy provinces. So you have to be able to deal with that in some way, right? You have to be able to, 1, deal with the pressure and not snap under it. And 2, if he does manage to get half of the provinces, what are you going to do then? You need a plan, right? You probably have to go for like islands and duchies and islands and duchies, and then piles start to become an issue. So if you're going for the junking plan, you have to know what you're doing. and you have to have a very good estimation of what his deck will look like after 2-3 turns, and is it worth it to go that way, because he's still like putting 2 ambassadors out here and sending 2 separate pieces of junk to me, so that his deck isn't bad. He's still able to do something like that. So if you do pick up a curse and fling it at him, he could probably fling 2 back at you, and you have to deal with that. I mean, eventually I think I would win it, but he might get enough provinces by that point. So I decided to go for the treasure maps instead. I have both of them. Now, I'm looking to see if I could draw a gold here, but I would need 2 gold to be able to buy a province. What I am going to do, or what I should do here, yeah, is set aside one of the golds within native village and just return all junks. So I have 1 gold set aside for me, so if I, I'm short or 2 native village, hey, I have a gold on my native villages. They've been keeping it for me, thank you very much. For here, I could get the cut purse, I could, but I decided to go for the Haven, again, just to spread out the money nice, right? I only want $8 or $9 per turn, and hopefully I could churn a province out per turn from here. That is the plan, and I need to just be aware of what he is doing. He's right now ahead on points. He has the island, the 1 estate, and the province, which now turns into 2 provinces because he has enough money to do so, right? And he has havens as well and native villages, so he could, save up stuff and build towards our province turn. So, that being said, I'm going to pick up my first province here, and we're on our way with the provinces at this point. So 1 province for me, putting me to 6 points against his 15. Not looking good, but I am hoping his deck will break down at some point. The provinces are stop cards. Hopefully he won't find his money, and he doesn't have as much money as me now. I have tons and tons of it. I struck gold, woohoo. So, now we're sorta into the end game, I'm not sure. I think we are. Into the end game. That's something to think about. Oh, he manages to set aside his province there, which is good for him, but it probably also, it tells me that he probably doesn't have money for province this turn. So he sends a copper across, picks up another island, right, which is reasonable. Over the duchy at this stage. It will help keep it thin. So if I could get to the copper that he sent to me and return it at this point, that will be excellent, but I don't think I can get there with my deck right now. The extra gold was just too much gold. What I am going to do, however, is send him an ambassador, because I don't really need it now. I don't need it. My deck has a lot of money in it. Could deal with the odd copper so that he throws at me, and the ambassador doesn't give me money. There's no plus coin marks on it. So I'm going to send the ambassador over to him. Not really worried about what he could do with it. Like, it's just a junk card for him at this point, right? It's not money. You really want to see money now and to be able to buy province. And, right, what I was going to say, with the end game and ambassadors around, you have to be very cognizant of the piles. So, for example, if there are 2 provinces left, I can play an ambassador, reveal province, give him a province, and then buy a province for myself. Right, so that is something that I can do, and I need to be aware of it. So he actually, I thought he would get 8 there, but he doesn't. He gets 7. I was pretty happy about that, right? If he was able to get a province there, that would just put me under quite a bit of pressure. So he just has the M7 coin, and it goes for a gold, which is reasonable, I think. Now he has 2 gold in his deck, so he could probably, manage things better, go for provinces and whatnot. Going to send this copper back to him, and I have exactly enough for a province. So now, situation is I have 3 provinces, he has 2 and some islands. I have the estate, the 1 estate that has been floating around, which actually might be handy now. Might not be as well. So we'll see what happens here. I think so there are 3 provinces left. Yeah, there are 3 provinces left. And I believe my opponent comes up with enough. No, no, he doesn't come up with enough here. He actually sends me back an ambassador, which is funny. He also has enough for a duchy, doesn't have enough for a province. So all those are very, very good signs for me. Very, very good signs for me. It means his deck is breaking, right? He can't string together enough money to pick up a province reliably. So I'm gonna pick up the mat here mostly because there's a bunch of caravans on it and I want it in play. I'd have been happy to keep the money there because I probably would have found enough this turn to buy province. But I want the caravans in play. I do set aside an ambassador. And the reason is, I wanted to set aside a province too, but I felt I had one in the back. And the reason is because of that ambassador trick, right? Now, I can do the trick and actually see in this hand I've won based on what I've set aside. I have the money and I have the ambassador with the province, so I can send him a province. Even if he buys province here, well, I just buy a province, right, and win the game. If he doesn't, give him a province, buy a province. We're done. We win the game. So, well, there's nothing else to be said, right? He can't do anything. He's locked out at this point. So, very, very grindy, slow game, right? Where a lot of it was just flinging coppers back and forth and estates back and forth. But that's what you get when you play with Ambassador. Very long game. You can see the number of turns here, and you have to be aware all the time. So, I mean, is what Ambassador does, right? It's what Ambassador does. So he does manage to get enough for a duchy, and I am going to close out the game here now. Sending him a province. Man, when I'm playing, I'm so worried about misclicking. Like, what if I accidentally return the province to the pile and then screw up everything? But I have to be very, very careful and deliberate to not. Alright, thanks for watching the Seaside one, and we are even at 2 right now. So, see you in the next game.